Here come the boys. Y'all ready to go swimming, baby? Come on. Give it up. Get out of that water. I tried telling y'all, it's swim lessons, baby.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Swim Lessons, a podcast. My name is Dallas Hansen. You know, we talk a lot about resilience here, about the human capacity to face down real darkness, to almost get swallowed whole by it, and not just to crawl out of that hole, but to turn around, reach back in, and start pulling out other people. That's next level stuff, and it's rare. And that's exactly why I'm so fired up about today's conversation. My guest today is Troy Roness. He's a clinical therapist now, helping people navigate their own battles. But his path here, man, it wasn't academic. It was forged through tough times. This guy's been through some of the darkest, most brutal personal struggles you can imagine. We're talking battles that consumed him, that dragged him into places that most people can't even conceive of. It got so real, so public, that he even ended up on the Dr. Phil show laying it all out in front of millions, which on its own is kind of a trial by fire. But here's the most incredible part. He didn't just survive it, he studied it. He metabolized that pain. He did the grueling daily work to pull himself out piece by piece, and he turned his misery into a manual for recovery. And now he uses that hard-won knowledge to guide others, to actually make a difference. And let me tell you, doing that work, truly changing lives, it's exhausting. It drains your cup every single day. But Troy does it. He shows up. I'm genuinely proud to know this guy, and it's a wild, small world thing. He's from my hometown of Crosby, North Dakota. Proof that inspiration and real strength can come from anywhere. So if you're ready for a conversation about raw recovery, about turning your deepest struggles into your greatest purpose, and about the tough, rewarding work of actually helping people, this podcast is for you. But before we get to Troy, we have to pay tribute to a few of our sponsors that made today possible. Number one is PSP Network. It's game day. They've been promoting local student athletes for a very long time. Right now, they're in the heart of hockey and basketball season. We are so happy to be ready to go for a lot of great basketball coming up, a lot of great hockey. I myself and the rest of the talent team have been working hard to make sure we bring all these games to the public, and you can find all of our schedules and events on the website that is psp.network. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's at PSP Network. Make sure you share those feeds, subscribe to the YouTube channel, give us a like. And we've got the fun part about high school sports is January, February, March are loaded, and you're starting to see kind of the good separate from the bad. And it's a fun time. It's a competitive time. I myself am a sports nut, so I'm so excited about what's about to happen here with PSP Network. So make sure you check us out on psp.network. Next up is Glosso Angus. They're a proud sponsor of Swim Lessons, a podcast. They're your premier source for registered Black Angus cattle since 1973. Glosso Angus cattle showcase dominance, durability, and docility, and they're built to thrive on the northern plains. Check them out. That's Glosso, Glasoe, Angus.com. And last but not least, in the heart of the Bakken and Williston, North Dakota, I got the place where you need to go grab some food. It's River's Edge Bar and Grill. They're known for offering the best happy hour in town, providing unbeatable deals and a lively atmosphere. Guests can also enjoy a variety of entertaining activities, including bingo, trivia, and the very popular Name That Tune. Come on down to River's Edge for great drinks, great food, and great fun. All right, friends, let's dive in. This is Troy Roness. It is so good to see you again, man. It's been too long.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think the last time we probably saw each other was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, it's a small world because now you live in Minot. I live in Minot pretty much. But I just saw on your Facebook page 17 years since the Dr. Phil show.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I just think how fast time flies, and then reflecting on what I learned, kind of what's been going on in my life since that time, how things have definitely changed. And the whole thing is just, it's kind of a whirlwind, to be honest with you. So I expected, honestly, to go back on the show after we were done, and we were invited back. The other guy who was on there with me, and they ended up going to something different. But I think it would be great to focus on the recovery aspect and not just how sick we both were.
Yeah.
But a lot of really good things have come out of it. Obviously, I'm still here and able to, live life just like everybody else.
What's Dr. Phil like?
Well, I met him for about 20 minutes while I was on the stage.
Is that how the show is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. I'm still actually pretty good friends with the producers of the show.
Okay.
They worked with me for about a week and a half, 2 weeks prior to the taping, and they were in communication with me about flights, about logistics, all that stuff. And they were great, but I met him as soon as I went onto the stage, talked with him for about 20 minutes, and then that was it. That was it. And the one thing that I do remember him saying during a commercial break, and those were about 30 seconds, but he leaned over and he said, if you take advantage of this, this is going to save your life. And that was the one thing that he kind of said that really stuck. When I was at that point in my life, my memory is not all that great. Nutritionally, I wasn't where I was supposed to be. And so the experience is kind of a blur, but certain things definitely stick out, and that was one of them. Yeah.
Are you comfortable telling everybody that's going to listen to this what was going on in your life at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I obviously was an athlete back in.
You were a good basketball player, dude. I remember that.
Well,
you get those rebounds. You would protect like this as a young kid. I was watching.
Everything. Yeah, you're making me sound old. Like, yeah. But senior year, something clicked, and it was like the mental part, the emotional part, the physical part. Everything kind of came together, especially with basketball. Football, it was fun. I was definitely nothing close to a standout, but I had a really good time. Track and field was fun, but basketball just seemed to go really, really well.
Why do you think that was?
And I think maturity is probably part of it. I think the positive reinforcement that I got, not only from teammates, but from the community, and then wanting to do well. I think that was huge. But, high school, I never thought about the way that I looked. I never really thought about wanting to be any different. And it was almost as if there was like this shift, this moment when I was probably a freshman in college. And I said, okay, something like my life feels completely out of control. Something's got to be different. And from that moment on, I really started to change diet. I really started to change my exercise routine. And it was all for very, very healthy reasons. And it spiraled. It spiraled into the one thing that I felt like I had total control over: how much I ate, how much I worked out. And that kind of became my identity. And so that went on for probably 2.5 or 3 years. Whoa. And my family obviously noticed physical changes with me. But the bigger thing was the psychological, the personality differences. I was really outgoing in high school, and I kind of isolated and pulled away. I didn't go to, Thanksgiving. I didn't go to Christmas. I didn't go to birthdays. I really was kind of a recluse at that time. And it was because that was everything that my mind focused on, was how much am I going to work out, how, kind of planning everything that I was going to eat. And so they knew something was wrong, and made a lot of noise, but I just simply didn't listen to it. The interesting thing, I was teaching in Tioga at the time and coaching my first year. So I was probably 22. I'd started teaching there right at the age of 21, a little bit younger in my class. And I just remember it went really well. The community of Tioga was super supportive. I loved coaching and teaching there. The kids were great. But I was sitting at home with a laptop at the time, and Mom, for some reason, was a really big fan of the Dr. Phil show. I think everybody was way back then.
Oh man, it was the best.
And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't quit working out. I couldn't figure out what the disconnect was, why my body hurt all the time, why I had to have this one thing. And so I pulled up his website. I shot him a question and left it at that. And I think it was 2 or 3 days later where I got a response back via email asking me if I would provide more information. And so I thought, well, this is probably very standard. Went ahead and did it. And a couple of days later, I was at the school teaching. I think it was my sophomores at that point, and I received a phone call, and it was so-and-so from the Dr. Phil show. And I thought it was a prank, but then I go, okay, nobody knows I did this. No one has my number. And they asked me to come on, but they didn't really tell me what for. They didn't tell me who the guests were. They didn't tell me what the theme was, but it was about exercise. And so I said, I couldn't do that. Absolutely not. I've got a job. I've got coaching. I've got responsibilities. This is my first year. No way am I going to give that up. So there was a back and forth between myself and the producers for about 2 or 3 weeks until I finally agreed. I went to the administration. I think they were taken aback by that, but they were okay with it. And so I went on the show not really knowing what it was for, but the psychiatrist who was on the show kind of diagnosed me while I was there. And so that was the first time that I had heard the term eating disorder. That's the first time that I'd really personalized it for me, because guys don't get eating disorders. They don't deal with that sort of thing. And I think I remember, hearing about it for one lesson in 8th grade for half the semester that we take, health. And so they gave me the option. It's kind of interesting as well. The producer said, you can accept the help on air if you want to, but behind the scenes, if you don't want to go, you don't have to go. Mm-hmm. And so I said, yes, I would go, not intending to go at all. I went home and went back to doing the same thing. So I went back to Tioga, was there for a couple of weeks. And the psychiatrist, though, he kept hounding me from this facility out in Wisconsin. And they offered me residential treatment. And so, talking with my family, kind of consulting with a lot of people who are faith-based and stuff like that, I decided to go. But I thought it'd be a couple of weeks. I'd be back, no problem. Well, it ended up being 3 months out in Wisconsin. And looking back, I came home far too early because within, I think, 6 or 8 weeks after that, I was back in treatment just as sick as I was before, and in another 3 months of intensive therapy while I was out there. So about 6 months total, but came home and just things were different. But I had to give up that coaching job, that teaching job. Mm-hmm. And that was so tough to get through because I left my kids behind, my coaching behind. But in hindsight, it was the best decision I could have made. I wouldn't have been anything to them or to me had I just continued to do what I was doing.
3 months wasn't long enough.
No. And I spent a lot of times, I was with all guys when I was there. There was a specific unit for females and specific for males. I was with anywhere from 7 to 15 guys at one time. And some of them had been there for 6 weeks. Some of them had been there for 2 years.
Whoa.
And it was wild learning about guys who were 15 years old, guys who were 50 some years old, ex-military, people with family, people with kids. And to know that it was not as silent of an issue as I thought it was. But it was eye-opening, and it challenged a lot of the rigidity that I had in terms of what I could do, what I couldn't do. They gave me challenges all the time. We had group therapy, we had individual therapy, we had dietitians working with us. I'm still close with my dietitian to this day. Hated her while I was there, but it was all for the better, and. So it's one of those things I look back on with just a hint of fondness, but also, man, that was really, really tough because they encourage you to kind of pull away from family, to not maybe indulge as much with communication and things like that, not because they don't want that support, but because you have to focus on you. And I think part of the reason why the 3 months the first time wasn't probably as productive was because I was so focused on getting home, getting to my athletes, getting to my kids. And so, again, looking back, my mom came out one time in both stints out there. And I'm glad that they only did that. And, there weren't a lot of phone calls because I was doing the work.
Well, yeah. I'm glad you got it done, man.
Yeah.
And you're doing great things now.
Yeah. And coming home, it's not like, okay, you go to treatment and you're all better. I came home and it was another 2.5 or 3 years of outpatient stuff in Bismarck. That's where I moved when I came home. And, it was still a lot of hard work. I was with a psychiatrist. I was with a therapist. I was with a dietitian. And so, the work continued until, I kind of weaned myself off of it. I kind of developed that self-awareness of what I need when I need it. And things just kind of took off from there as far as wanting to work in advocacy, wanting to work with families and kids and stuff like that. So things were really good in Bismarck for me. I enjoyed living there.
Well, I listened to your TEDx talk, and that was fantastic, by the way. But right kind of at the beginning, you mentioned a stat line that I had no idea about, where the eating disorder thing is the biggest cause of death in younger people. Is that how you put it? Yeah.
And things have changed now with the opioid epidemic and stuff like that. But as far as mental health issues go, it's top of the list. Yeah.
That's insane to me. I mean, a person doesn't think about that. And like you said, it's kind of like under the rug type thing where like in high school and even in college, a couple of I can probably say 10 to 15 people I knew had an eating disorder.
Sure.
And it was sad.
Sure.
And it was sad because they felt like they were hiding it, but you could see it happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And most people with eating disorders, you can't really just look and tell.
Right.
Again, the personality changes, the change in just who they are is really what sets people off. Because most people focus on the weight part. But it's not a biological illness; it's a psychological illness. And so, if we focus too much on the biological part, so the weight, if they're overweight, underweight, average weight, whatever it is, you're not going to be able to identify people. And so. It's interesting as I've kind of, crisscrossed the country a little bit, talking to different audiences and organizations and things. I've had a lot of young, 18 to 24, 25-year-olds come up and go, wow, I didn't know that this is what was going on. Why I had to hit the gym 3-4 times a day. Why, all this stuff with food was so big for me. I mean, military guys and high school, college athletes. I dealt with that actually quite a bit while I was at Minot State. And so it's not that I think that it's, something that we can just obviously ignore. I think it's a lot of, we're a fitness culture, which there's nothing wrong with fitness at all, staying healthy. But I think the emphasis and the focus on the control aspect, again, this becomes my identity, or I'm an influencer, I'm this, I'm that, and that's the only thing that I am. I think that's when we get into trouble, or when the working out, the food, on and on and on, when that becomes more important than your social life, then things like that, when it controls you before you control it, that's when there's a problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's scary today because so many young people, their whole lives are on social media, and social media is dictated by likes, by shares, by what is this person doing? What are they sharing on their story? And I mean, I was lucky because I'm just starting. I try to stay off it as much as I can, but obviously with the podcast and my sporting thing, I try to promote myself and try to get my name out there. But even then, man, like I'm still, like I look at this other guy, he has this podcast called For the Farmers, and I hate this guy because like he's I feel like I'm better than him, but he's getting like all these NFL players, all these types of things, and it makes me it's kind of a give and take, because I like it because then it kind of fuels my soul to keep going.
Sure.
But at the same time, why am I looking at him every day? Why do I care? I shouldn't care. He's doing his own thing. He's running his own race. Right. And I feel like so many young people, even in today's society, that's what it is. Yep. It's like, you should just run your own race. You don't worry about their race. Run your own race. Everybody's different.
No. Absolutely. And comparison is huge when it comes to things like obsessive compulsive disorder, when it comes to eating disorders, all of that stuff. And so when it comes to social media, it feeds itself, no pun intended. But I mean, when algorithms are, like you said, they're kind of based upon what I like, what I don't like, really unhealthy patterns, habits, influencers thrive in that relationship. And so, kids today are influenced by diet and exercise by the time they're in second or third grade, which is insane.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, absolutely. I think females, there aren't a lot of stats about guys, but for females, most of the time, have been or have tried to reduce or change their diet by the time they're in the third grade, which is insane.
Wow.
Because I don't remember doing that, obviously, when I was in school. But now that has completely shifted. And so, I'm not a parent, so I kind of get a lot of flack sometimes when I'm like, don't let your kids do this, or kind of have your kids do that. But the social media influence is a lot bigger than I think people give it credit for.
If you were a parent, what would be the appropriate age to let your son or daughter have social media?
Well, I love the ban that schools have put in place.
Yes.
I think learning needs to top getting on your phone and things like that. I'm kind of a non-interventionist when it comes to government things, but I think as far as kids' safety, kids' learning, and kids' growth, I think they need to be 15, 16, if not older than that, just because we know how it affects the brain in terms of attention, in terms of their interests, and how it shapes their personality. I think we need to wait a whole lot longer.
In the morning when you wake up, how long do you wait till you look at your phone? Or do you do it right away? So there, actually at work, I was actually just working with somebody, and if you wait at least 20 minutes to not look at your phone, your
your reach for dopamine throughout the day will actually go down. So if I wake up in the morning and I take a shower, if I start to get ready and I leave my phone alone for 20 minutes, my urge to look at that throughout the day is going to be down significantly. So I try as long as possible to not look at my phone throughout the morning. And when I'm at work, I'm typically busy anyway. But that first, going through all the accounts, going through all the social media, going through my emails, all that stuff, I really try to put that away. And that study kind of started me doing that because, again, I was just as bad as everybody else, looking at it all the time, checking my emails, going to my accounts, all of that stuff. But in the morning, I wait 20 to 30 minutes before I even look at it.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to wait 20, 30. That's a good idea. That's a good call.
Yeah. And I mean, with kids and stuff, it's, again, they're going to school. They have the smart boards. They have all of this stuff. They're used to seeing all of this really, really cool interactive stuff when they get to school. And so attention is very, very difficult. And so the more that I can keep them away from looking at the phones all the time, again, I'm not going to need that dopamine hit every single time, because we know doom scrolling is because we're tapped out.
Yeah.
Our dopamine's tapped out. And so the less we have in terms of checking our phones, the better.
I went to a comedy show down at Joe Rogan, the Mothership in Austin, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, when you first get there, they make you put your phone into this like lockable little satchel thing, and you cannot open it.
Okay.
Everybody does it. The room inside there was crazy because people are talking to each other. Nobody's looking down. They're full on with the comedian that's on stage, and nobody's trying to take a picture, video, selfie, whatever it is. And then you leave and they just unlock and you get your phone back.
Right.
But for those 2.5 hours that you're at that show, it's just you and the comedy and the people around you. And it was a breath of fresh air.
Right.
One of the best experiences. I mean, the comedy was great. Don't get me wrong, Troy, but it was like, man, I don't have to worry about that stupid phone. Like, it doesn't matter. Even if it's ringing, vibrating, it doesn't matter. But it's because it's locked away. I can't get at it. And it was like this really unique thing for me, because I realized, dude, this is like if I were to lose that thing, it's like a loss of a limb. You know, it's like, it's a part of me now, and that's scary.
Yep, absolutely. And so we think about what we protect ourselves from. So I always have my phone in my hand. Well, the fear of losing it, not having it, not being able to check, seeing what people are saying or commenting, the fear becomes bigger. And so, like you said, having it locked away in a social environment like that, I realize I don't need that type of stimulation. I have people around me. Like, I think about, again, the dinner table. When I was younger, I mean, we talked to each other. We did all of those things. And now I can go to a family event and everybody's heads down.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's looking at phones and things like that. And so even working in therapy now too, it's sometimes a struggle when a member will come in and have their phone out, and
you have to tell people to put it away at therapy. Absolutely. Yeah. It's one of those things where I'm like, okay, can we come to some sort of agreement? Because, again, whether you've just come from the gym, you're high, you're drunk, whatever it is, you haven't slept, that's going to influence how we work together. And so I encourage people to just turn their phones off, put them on silent, put them somewhere else. Because, again, especially when they're younger, there's that, I have to hold it. I have to, like a phantom phone in my hand all the time. I want to go real quick. We got off track a little bit, but okay. So when you're in Bismarck, this is a big part of the story that I want to talk to you about. You move back to Bismarck, you're kind of figuring out yourself, figuring out your life, getting healthy. When do you get into becoming a clinical therapist? Actually,
that didn't happen until 2015.
Oh, okay.
So I went to school, got my education license, my coaching certification, and then I went back for my master's degree while I was in Bismarck. I came home and I felt completely lost. I think I was without a job for 6 to 9 months, somewhere in there. Fortunately, I had a nice reserve that I had built up because I'm a saver by habit. But I'm lost. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not teaching. I'm not coaching. And so I finally got a position with the Department of Health and Department of Public Instruction to kind of support me at that time. And I went back to school, partly because I received a scholarship from Coach Dale Brown. And so I went back for my master's in education, but fast forward a couple of years, that was 2012, 2015, while I was here at Minot State, I decided to go back to school for clinical therapy. So there was a huge gap in there in terms of what I wanted to do and when. I was doing small group supportive groups and things like that while I was in Bismarck, but it was nothing where I was licensed. It was more just, family friend type support stuff. But the licensure didn't come around until I finished in about 2018. So that master's degree took me a little bit longer, but
What's it like going to school for that type of degree? Or like, are you studying the human mind, or what's it like?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a little bit in my first master's there. It was on cognitive science. So we do a little bit of like how people learn, what are the best approaches to take to teaching and things like that. So I had a little bit of experience in that, but you go in and you focus on not only treatment methods, but you look at the brain, you look at how it operates, you look at different theories, of course, and foundational research in what therapy does, what it doesn't do. And so I appreciated the program that I was in because it allowed us to go in the direction where we felt like we were drawn. So there wasn't a cookie cutter, okay, coming out of this program, you're going to practice this, this, and this. You're going to practice this modality or use this theory. And so you're kind of allowed to grow within the program. You get that foundational knowledge about how the brain works, about how to use different interventions and skills, but you're allowed to go in the direction that you want to. And I thought that was fantastic. I finished in 2018. I was still teaching at MSU. And then in 2019, a position opened up on campus for a therapist. And so I was stuck. I had a lot of friends in the department in kinesiology that I was working with, but I thought I got to throw my hat in the ring.
Yeah.
And fortunately, they hired me, and I was able to do a lot of work with athletes. I was able to do a lot of work with students on a different level from teaching. It was more one-on-one. I got to know them entirely differently, and I really, really enjoyed that. And so I'm really happy with the direction that I went. But my experience at MSU, teaching psychology of athletics and kinesiology classes and things, I was always working with athletes. But this, at the beginning of every year, during the middle of the year, the end of year, we met with all the teams at MSU, and we let them know what resources were available. But we had group therapy, we had individual therapy. When there was a crisis on campus or in Minot or something like that, we worked directly with those students, and it was incredibly rewarding to be able to identify stuff that I had personally gone through, but also identify things before they became a problem. And you just think of the amount of time that you hopefully save some of those kids from having to go through. I thought that was the most rewarding part of my position there.
That's a beautiful thing that Minot State offers. I don't think that's everywhere.
So as part of the student fees, MSU offers, counseling therapy. I don't know that all campuses across the country do that. I'm pretty sure they don't, but it's changed just a little bit since I've been there. There's a lot of online counseling and therapy, but there's also, I think, one individual who works there. But I still think that one-on-one is way better.
Yeah.
Not just, that's a personal preference of mine, but there's a human being there who is holding space, who's validating your concerns. And from my perspective, I'm not a therapist who's going to agree with you on everything. I'm going to challenge you. So I think in some respects, people like that. Some people absolutely hate it. But that one-on-one, that human connection is, you can't replicate that with an online tool.
Well, we were talking about this before we jumped on, but I had Melissa Spelchin on, and she's a mental health coach, and she was at Minot State, and you and her, I gotta get you two together because you guys think exactly like. She's fantastic. But I say this on the sports broadcast a lot, and I was thinking about it today when I was preparing for you to come in. When a basketball player misses a shot and he's a good shooter, I always say, he's got to have that goldfish memory. The next shot's going to go in. Yep. That is like one of the wildest things to say thinking about it, because there's probably a lot more to it than just, I just missed a shot, I'm just going to hit the next one. Mm-hmm. I took a psychology class in college, and I'll never forget the professor said, sports are easy until you start thinking about it. Yep. When you start thinking about it, that's when it gets hard.
100%.
And it's a simple way to put it, but it's very complex.
Well, not only that, but when stress and anxiety enter the mind, enter the body, it changes physiologically how muscle movements go into effect. So you can practice a free throw 10,000 times. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's like tying your shoe. You don't even have to think about it. But again, the shot clock, you think about the crowd, you think about the pressure that's on there to score and all that stuff. And the simplest of muscle memory becomes the most difficult thing. That's why people choke. That's why people can't perform, because they start focusing on, this didn't feel right. That muscle didn't go here. I didn't do this correctly. They overthink what their body is used to doing, kind of that flow state. And so anxiety and stress completely screw things up. And so again, that fits very well. As soon as I start thinking about it, it becomes really, really tough. Yeah.
What do you think about yoga
And
meditation?
I think it can be fantastic in terms of bringing the mind calm. I think it's fantastic for flexibility and all of those other things. But I think, again, being present is really, really important. The past is usually associated with regret or sadness. The future is usually anxiety and fear. So if we can figure out a way that works for us on how to stay present and in the moment and not worrying about what's going on, either what we did before or what's going to happen next, better things tend to happen right in front of us when we stay in the moment.
Spot on, Troy.
Yeah.
That made my day right there. Because I do that all the time.
We're all guilty in some respects.
What's going to happen? What am I going to do? What if this goes wrong? What if it goes right? What am I going to have to move? Am I going to stay here? What's going to go? What about my parents? They still live in Crosby. I got a young son. I got my girl. What if you just live in the moment? And that's exactly what you need to do. And that it alleviates so much.
It does. It's much easier said than done.
Yeah.
And it takes practice and it takes repetition, because a lot of the times we have neural pathways within the brain that are the normal track that we get stuck in. It's something that we repeat. And so when we try to challenge that, the body doesn't like that very much, at least at first. So it's something that we have to practice, like a skill, like tying your shoes. At first we were terrible at it, but now a lot of us can talk and do a bunch of different things while we're tying our shoes. It becomes muscle memory, but we have to challenge those neural pathways that are set in place. And so I that's probably the hardest thing about, working in therapy with people is we're so used to that instant gratification. I want it better now. But having to sit down and work through, whether it's trauma, it's grief, it's a frustration. Like I can't figure out how I'm supposed to perform in a really high pressure environment. It takes time to practice, to rewire what it is that's going through your head. And so I just try really hard to focus on, okay, what are we doing today? What are we practicing when we're outside of here? But don't go to the future. Don't go to the past. What's going on right now? Identifying where that's at physically in your body. So where are the emotions, where they're being stored? How are you responding to that? Because most of the time, if I become anxious about something like an interview that's coming up, your body's going, hey, that looks really, really familiar to me. And the last time I encountered that, I got really, really anxious and scared. So I'm going to apply that here, because last time it helped me, it saved me, it protected me, it did something. So usually it's your body responding to something, even if it's not identical. It says, hey, that's familiar. I have to change that. I have to approach it differently.
Yeah, that's spot on. I mean, and the reason I brought up yoga is because Phil Jackson, he's a famous basketball coach.
Yeah.
I just finished his last book, and I love this guy so much. And he was talking in the book how the Bulls were really good. They had Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, all this pressure to win. And there's kind of some animosity. So he would actually do group yoga with the team.
Sure.
Like everybody just get in a circle, and Phil Jackson would conduct it and tell them, hey, just calm, you're here, you're in the present. Even brought Sage into the locker room. I think, and maybe this is me just being a weird, like half-assed hippie, but I love that stuff.
Sure.
And when I lived in Scottsdale, I did yoga every day. Yep. It was a hot yatha, like a slow stretch, but it was really good for me. And it got me in the best shape of my life. And I felt mentally I was in the best shape of my life. And
100%.
There's just something about, and again, going back to the phone, okay, I'm going to be an hour at this yoga session, no phone, just me in this room, don't know anybody else. And I'm just going to focus on me. Because even like today or yesterday when I went to the Y, I had my phone on me. I was listening to music. Oh, I don't like this song. Next song. You know what I mean? It's like it's still there, where sometimes that 1 hour, 30 minutes, whatever you can give yourself could save your day, save your week.
Yeah. Well, and I think about that too in terms of the football program that we both come from. I think Coach Brown and Coach Nelson implemented that. It was shortly after I graduated, but the benefits that come with that, not only physically, but emotionally, mentally, and again, focusing on the here and the now, again, trying to let go of the what if, because if you go to what if land, you're already in trouble. That happens. So I think about, even the college athletes that I was working with and the 150 MSU football players that I'd stand in front of. And when we talk about, doing yoga or doing, group fitness and things like that to really kind of bring the heart rate, bring the body down to square one. Some of them came from programs where that was incredibly important. And then some of them, it was very, very foreign. And so we just have to give things a chance. Like you said, your mind's quiet. And for a lot of people, when the mind is quiet, I start thinking about the things that I haven't dealt with, or I start to think about what I have to do or what I want to do. So the quiet sometimes scares people. And that's why they avoid it by being busy or going to other things, listening to things, cleaning, you name it, hitting the gym. Sometimes that quiet, though, does scare people, because even though it's supposed to be associated with safety, people go, okay, but now my head's too loud. Now my head's too loud.
Isn't that funny that Mr. Brown and Mr. Nelson came up? Because I'm with you. Like before my senior year, rather than giving us a playbook of plays for football, they give us a thing called the playbook of life.
Yep.
And then 3 weeks into my senior year, my best friend passed away, Justin Haugland.
Yep.
And it was like, it was the toughest thing I've ever been through. And then to go back to that playbook of life and reread that. And they had no idea this was going to happen.
Right.
It was just happenstance. Like, it just was out of luck, kind of. And Mr. Brown, I've asked him to come on this podcast a bunch of times. Like, I want to, but it's not his style. I've had Mr. Nelson on, Coach Nelson on twice, and I love that guy too. But Bob Brown, like the way he handles himself, and he's able to institute these unique ways of thinking that carry people through the rest of their life. Like, I still have that playbook in this closet. Like, you just brought it up, and it's so funny that young people are influenced by good coaches like that for the rest of their life.
Well, and a note about Coach Brown is I do keep in contact with him. I ask about the team every year, kind of like what he's expecting. It's different to be on this side of things, because when I was on the other side of things, he wasn't human. He knew everything. We went into every game. We're going to win.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
1,000%.
Absolutely everything. And he knows how to motivate people to play like nobody else that I've probably ever met. And interestingly enough, when Justin passed away, I was actually at Rogers.
No kidding.
And so I was really close. Paige was in my class, Paige Haugland.
Wow.
And so when I heard that he had passed away, I called her. And it was tears both ways, because I knew Justin, not super, super well, but by association with Paige and Butch and all of them, it hit hard, because there wasn't a why. You know, why is our survival skill, because if I know why, I can make things better, I can prevent something bad from happening, or I can fix it. And when there's not an answer, people go crazy, because there isn't a reason, you know. So it's interesting that you say that. But I remember also Coach Brown saying, I think I was a sophomore at the time, and he said, I don't care if you're the standout player. I don't care if you never play. I don't care if you're on the sidelines. He goes, if you show up to practice and you put in the work, you're going to have my respect for the rest of your life. And he owns that. He owns that. He treats you so well. And it didn't matter where you were. And like I said, I was far from being a standout player, and one of the best coaches I've ever had, probably the best coach. And he knows how to pull it out of people.
Hates media, though.
He does. He's a very humble guy.
Yeah, he's
very humble.
Yeah. And Mr. Brown, if you hear this, you got to come on. But I had the fortune when I went back to Divide County after I moved out of Scottsdale, I got to coach his son, Brady.
Yep.
And that was one of a really cool experience, because when I left, Brady was a sophomore. So I had 2 years with Brady, but I decided to leave because I wanted to pursue sports broadcasting stuff. And he sent me like the nicest text I've ever got in my life. Like I screenshot it and I have it in my Gmail account forever, because he's just like, thank you for coaching my son. And I'm just sitting, when I'm reading this, I'm like, this guy has no idea that he is the most influential person I've ever had in my life.
100%.
And that I was able to provide a little bit of that for his own son made my life complete. You know, It's like a full circle moment.
Yep.
When I'm sitting there reading this, I'm like, dude, this guy's so humble. He has no idea.
Yep.
He has no idea.
Yeah. And I think a part of it, and I'm not speaking for him, so if he does watch this, I'm not speaking for you, Coach, but I think a lot of it, you know, talking to Mrs. Brown, because again, I used to have her speak to my, if I had elementary ed students in some of my classes, I would have her speak with them, and she was always gracious enough to do that. But I think as a family, faith is really, really important to them. And I remember at some point, you know, him talking about it. I don't know if he remembers this, but he would pray before every single game. And I think that really is the foundational piece for him as far as being humble. I think he's been through a lot of life experiences that have opened his eyes, that have challenged him. And, it's made him the person where you and I are sitting on a podcast, for me, 20 years later, talking about it. Yeah.
And it's like you said, it's not just about the wins or losses, or if you're a star player, good player. I mean, he'll have you for the rest of your life, and that's what makes him special. got off again, but I want to talk a little bit more. So when you leave Minot State and you decide you want to go a little bit more into clinical therapy, what was that mindset like where you're like, okay, I want to make a change and I actually want to do something different?
Yeah, I mean, there was a mindset that I think I'm ready at this point in my life. I need something different. I had 12 great years at Minot State University, but it was terrifying because I was comfortable. I knew the faculty, I knew the staff, I knew the students. I mean, a lot of these students would have my cell phone number, and if they were going through a rough time, they could call me, and so
that's a lot of pressure on you, though.
It is, but boundaries are really, really important.
Yeah.
Now, did I always follow them? No, I did not. But I was too comfortable. I felt like, at a certain point, there's a new company, a new opportunity. There's risks involved, but I have to take it because I feel like I'm way too settled where I'm at. I'm happy, but I think there's more. And so when I went to this new company with a completely different model than I've ever seen, with therapy, with physical health, with all of that stuff. It was a really quick process. I interviewed, I want to say a year and a half ago, and within a week, I got an offer, and I just randomly threw my hat in the ring for this job offering. Again, it's a company out of California. I had never heard of it before. What in the world is going on? And when I got the offer, it was something too good that I could not pass up. And letting go of MSU was
had to be tough.
Really hard.
12 years is a long time.
12 years. And then, I had a caseload. I was seeing 7, 8, sometimes 9 students a day when I was there. And there were a lot of tears. There were a lot of, unfinished business I felt on my end. Just, okay, is this enough? And again, I'm not in control. I'm not responsible for other people's emotions or their actions or their choices. But where we were in therapy, I thought, I'm not done yet. And so fortunately, some of them have followed to this new venture for me, but it was hard to let go of every fall, meeting with every group on campus, all the athletes, all the different clubs, all of that stuff. And so that's probably the thing I miss the most, the different kind of, I want to say opportunities, landmarks, points of interest that I had every single year, whether it was fall semester, spring semester, over break, over the summer when I could really focus on things. It was tough to let that go, for sure. So I had to trade kind of the comfortability for something new. And I'm glad I went that direction. I'm still adjusting. I'm only a year in, but I still hear from a lot of the MSU kids, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Your book, Unbroken, Journal Reflections of a Recovery. Is that correct? That's
yep,
the correct
that's
name?
Right. Yep.
I'm always curious, what's it like, A, to write a book, and B, how tough was that to put that out in the public?
Because I started keeping it. It was based upon journal entries from when I was in therapy.
Okay. I haven't read it. I got to be honest with you.
No, you're good. You're good. It's like 120 pages. It's really not that big of a deal,
man. That's a lot.
So I got the idea when I was in treatment. I'm like, I got to talk about this in some form of respect. And by chance, I got in touch with an editor, online through Facebook and stuff like that. And he said, why don't we put something together? And it was, again, it seemed to happen by chance, but I don't think things are by chance. I think there's purpose in everything. And so I kind of sent him all of my materials, all of the stuff that I, wrote while I was at Rogers Memorial Hospital, all the stuff that I wrote when I got home, and things from a couple of years later. And I wanted to do a whole autobiography. I'm like, let's hit the ground running. Let's put it all out there. And he said, no, you got to take, like, how do you eat an elephant? Just one bite at a time. So he said, why don't you put something out to kind of get people interested, and we'll do something bigger later. I hated that. I'm very instantly gratified. I want projects done. I want them done now. But I listened to him, and it was cathartic. It was challenging. There's a lot of stuff looking back that I watered down, and I wish I would have gone this way, that way. But I have to leave that on the shelf and go. But it is what it is, and I can do something different next time. So while I've read and looked through it, there's specific reasons why I don't go through it a lot, because I go, I want this different, that different, the other thing. I just hope that it's helpful, though, for individuals in my situation, other people with mental health issues, because it's not specifically just about the eating disorder. It's about faith. It's about mental health. It's about learning and building skills and takeaways. And so I just hope that whomever picks that up can take something from it. And I had some writing experience prior to the book. Like I said, opportunities kind of fell in my lap when I lived in Bismarck. I wrote for the HuffPost for a while, wrote for PBS for a while. Mrs. Duvetter back home would have been like, who is this kid? Because I was horrible in her class. So if she's listening, my apologies for that. But things went well. And I felt like, towards the end when I was kind of finishing up with both of those outlets, I was writing for the audience. I wasn't writing what I wanted to. And I think that when you're not true to what you want to put on paper, it becomes less effective. And I don't think people pay attention to it. And so I'm glad I kind of phased out of doing both of those. And then the book was a little bit different than that.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that I've tried to do this last year is, do you know who Rick Rubin is by chance?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the name. Yeah.
I love that guy. He's a fantastic music producer, but now he's kind of coming into this new thing of giving life lessons from all these great musical acts he's worked with. But the big thing was that he says he tries to write down every day, even if it's just a sentence or a paragraph or 4 pages, he tries to write down what's going on in his life.
Yep.
And that way, he says it helps him when producing music because then he can look back and see, okay, oh yeah, that's right. Where sometimes we forget that. Sure. And it's so crazy, Troy, when I have a decent idea and I think like it happens, and maybe you can explain this to me, but whenever I have a good idea, it's like right before I go to sleep. Mm-hmm. Right before I go to sleep, 100%. I'm like kind of laying in bed, or right before I take a nap, I'm just relaxed. I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. Mm-hmm. I'll remember that when I wake up. Do not remember it. Right. This is really weird, but I'll keep like this kind of notebook right beside my bed, and I'll just read over, or I'll just type it in the notes of my phone. I'll wake up. Okay, that's right. That's what I was going to do. That's that idea. And that, boom, there it is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would say I get my best ideas when I'm at the gym, especially when I'm doing cardio and things like that. And as soon as I stop, it's like everything just gone. Right. And so my hand, even typing, can't keep up with the thoughts that are going through my head. So journaling for me, I when I was in therapy, at Rogers, I hated it. I thought they were stupid. I thought it was ridiculous because not only could my hand not keep up, but I didn't know what or how to do it, even though there's no right way to do it. But I found that if I put a towel or something over my laptop and I turn the lights off, and I know that keyboards are illuminated and everything, but I don't focus on how long the sentence is, how many mistakes I'm making, anything like that. I just let my thoughts go. Yeah. And so I can come back later and obviously fix and do the edits and stuff like that. But my fingers are a little bit better able to keep up with my train of thought versus having to either keep up or fix the mistakes. It just lets me kind of free flow. And the other thing too, I think I use a lot of voice memos. I talk into it because if I get an idea, I'll put it in my phone. My mouth can pretty well keep up with what I'm thinking, but everything else it takes a little bit extra time. And I think, when you said right before I go to bed, I get a really good idea. That's also when a lot of people struggle with intrusive thoughts, things they don't want to think about, anxiety, stress, all of that stuff. And I've always encouraged them to, when they're feeling that, to set a timer on their phone, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you like. Write down every single thing on paper that you possibly can that's either scaring you or that you have to do. Get that list. When the timer says stop, you stop. You take that list, everything that you can't control right in this moment, you cross off. You take everything that's left, put it on another piece of paper, and put it in order for what I can do right now, what I can do tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. And so you're getting that cathartic release of, I'm writing these things down. I'm not going to forget, because that's what the brain associates with. You're going to forget it. So that's where the stress comes from. But if I write it down, I cross out what's out of my control. I kind of let that go. But now I've made a list, organization, structure, control, and I can go through that list then and check them off one at a time. There's a nice orderly thing because our brains love structure. They love control. They love all of that stuff. So you kind of get both. I'm getting it out of my head and onto paper, but then I'm organizing it so I can do it later. Yeah.
Another thing I'm going to start doing. That's beautiful, man. That's awesome.
And I encourage people to do it, whether they have time in the morning, but especially if there's a lot of stress before bed or anxiety. I'm like, okay, so start writing down what's going through your head. It could be the most ridiculous thing. Write it down. Set a timer, abide by the timer, and then make those lists as you go. Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. And I just seen the other day, actually, on X, people are starting to use therapists as ChatGPT and
100%.
AI. What are your thoughts on AI?
Don't like it.
Yeah, me neither.
I like it in the sense because my company now, we're rolling out, my company, like I own the thing, where I work, we're rolling out. So there's a scribe throughout session. So some people are uncomfortable with that, having something listening to you while you're going back and forth with your therapist, but it helps us put together treatment planning, specific goals and things like that. So helping to formulate a clear picture of the direction we want to go. I think AI is fantastic for that. However, again, it's like the online programming. A lot of people will talk to a chatbot or whatever it is. I don't think that the data is there yet. And not only that, there's no human connection. And I think even if we go, oh, that's a really great answer, that's a really great idea, I'm not getting that human to human interaction. I don't get somebody who has empathy for me. I don't have someone who's in the room with me. So I'm not a big fan of swapping those things. I like integrated work and integrated care. I think that's the better option for both worlds. But I think AI, within the next 5 years, everything's going to change.
Yeah, it is.
For sure.
I screwed up. So for Christmas, I bought my son Cade, and I should ask my significant other, Kristen, about this, but you'll get a kick out of this. So it was like this really cool doll I saw, and it was this really cool like robot doll.
Sure.
And inside of it was a AI type, like you can talk back and forth to it, like, hey, tell me a story about a bunny and a like rainbow, and then it would tell you a cool story, and then it would like. So I get this doll, and it was like $150. So I get it, and I'm programming it, and I'm going to wrap it up for my son. And it's like, who's the doll for? And I'm like, Kate. And they're like, okay, hello, Kate. Like, hey, what do you want to learn about today? And I'm like,
Sure.
okay, this is cool. So I give it to Kate for Christmas, and then Kristen goes, hey, have you looked much into this doll? And I'm like, no. She's like, maybe we should look into it before you give it to him. So I start looking into it, and all the information that you repeat to that is put online. Yeah. And then it can be sold to whoever. So they'll know everything about your son, everything. And obviously I get that, like internet, web browsers, like all that stuff, whatever. But it's like scary because then they have your son's voice, they have your voice, they have everything. And you don't know where this is being put, what kind of cloud, what kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, maybe we'll put the doll away for a little bit.
Sure.
But it was really interactive. It was really fun. But also it's like kind of scary. And you could ask this thing anything, Troy. You could be like, explain to me why it's raining today. What does it mean when it rains? And it'll tell you. Yeah. And why is grass so green today? What you know what I mean? And it's like very, very cool thing, educational. But at the same point, it's like to play that devil's advocate. Where's that information going? Who's going to get it? So
the lack of control, and I would never again tell you anything about decisions as a parent.
You're good.
But the other thing that I think about, especially with like dogs and things like that, like pets and stuff that are AI operated and things like that, I go, but again, how much is that pulling the person away from people, right? So there's that aspect. But interestingly enough, when you talk about AI and voices and where does that information go, it's one of the reasons why I haven't done the whole ancestry thing, why I haven't gone looking for, because your DNA then is given out to whomever. People know where you live, where you're from, all of that stuff. The same thing with, I'm as a therapist, I love the genetic testing for psychiatric medications, because then you're not trying 15 different things that fit you, that your brain, that crosses the blood-brain barrier and work really, really well for you. So you're not stuck trying 6 medications and are frustrated and want to give up and do all those things. I think it's phenomenal for that. But I also think about, where is that data going? Who has it? Who's selling it? I think it was 2 years ago now, not quite 2 years ago, my grandmother gave me a call. And she said, yeah, Troy, it was a couple of weeks ago, I received a phone call and it was your voice.
What?
And they were asking me for help. Like you were stranded somewhere, you needed money. She goes, I know you would never do that. So she said, I hung up, but it was your voice. And I go, they're getting more creative all the time.
I just warned my parents about that, because you hear all these horror stories on the news.
Yeah.
And here's a thing that I really want to bring up to you as a clinical therapist. So with some of these medications that get brought up and get given to people, they work, but then they work for like a month or two, and then they start to not work. What do you think is like something, because I have, and I'm not going to name some names, but I've got some friends and all throughout the United States that struggle with depression, struggle with anxiety, struggle with the everyday effect of, I mean, let's be honest, let's just call a spade here, Troy. right now, the time we're living in is one of the greatest times because you can get education anywhere, you can get any kind of information anywhere, but it's also one of the worst times because you go on social media and the world's falling apart.
Absolutely.
And it's like and I'm jealous of whoever this guy is, but there's somebody sitting next to a waterfall and they don't know how pissed off they should be because they have no idea what's going on. But at the same point, for people like you and I, we see both sides of it on social media, news, whatever it is. And then also, but we've got all this, we can get any information at any time.
Yeah.
But it also affects us because then you get depressed, then you get anxiety, then you get all these things. Yeah. Unfortunately for me, I've had my fair share of anxiety. That's why I started Swim Lessons, a podcast, because the podcast is about overcoming tough times. But also, when you get on these medications and they're hard to get off, what as a clinical therapist, what is kind of something you suggest or something that you would like to, when they're listening to this, something they could do to kind of maybe get over that and get over the medication side of things or with the medication stuff?
That's a multifaceted question.
It's a tough question, I know.
It is. And so obviously I'm not a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I don't prescribe meds. I don't do any of those things, but I'm not one to sit across from somebody in therapy and go, you need meds. Okay. Yeah. You've got anxiety, you've got depression, here, take a pill. I'm not like that. For some people it's appropriate. Some people it's not. For myself personally, after, 6 years of the psychiatric NP that I've been working with, I trust her. I've been working with her since 2013. Get genetic testing done, get it done. And I haven't done it until this year. It showed me, I just got the results like a week ago. It showed me what crosses the blood-brain barrier in my body. So what does my body absorb really, really well? And so for anxiety and depression, obviously let's work on you, the individual, first. Let's see what's going on. What's causing some of these things? Is it lifestyle? Is it like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Is it food, clothing, shelter, things like that? And then we can go into, okay, do we need medication? Because again, your quality of life is significantly decreased. As far as getting off of those medications, always, do it with a prescriber, do it with their advice. I guess the best advice that I can give is to, trust the person that you are with, but also medication isn't for everybody. It's really not. And I think a lot of people today are over medicated in the sense that I have anxiety, so I have to take something, or I'm really sad, so I have to take something. And so when real life things do happen, I get a flat tire on my way to work. I had an argument with my spouse. Somebody passes away. Not that somebody passing away is little, but I have an argument with my spouse in the morning, or I get a flat tire, my world falls apart. Not because that is world ending, but because I am so numb. I've cocooned myself into not being able to have a little bit of that resilience to life issues, And so as far as taking medications and not taking medications, I would say it's incredibly individualized, and getting off of those medications. Again, I work with the provider, look at your symptoms. If you're in therapy, talk about that, about the risks, the rewards, and what's best for you. Because again, you will know what is, I guess, the best direction for you. I know that's a really bland answer, but without like a specific case, it's really tough to say, yes, take it, no, don't take it, or get off of it this way, or continue taking it this way, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, the only reason I brought that up is because, again, some friends of mine, but also like Jordan Peterson, one of the smartest guys, you can ever listen to talk. For sure. He has been having a terrible time getting off some of the medication he was on. Yeah. Like it said it's changed his psyche, and it's really tough for him. And he's one of the smartest dudes of all time. But people that have served overseas and served in the military, they're starting to become out studies about psychedelic drugs and how that's really helped them. Yeah. What are your thoughts on
that? Again, I've worked with a couple of individuals with PTSD who are, military and stuff like that. I'm open to it as long as there's concrete evidence. It's guided one, but there's concrete evidence as to, yes, this is going to fit this specific thing. It's not just going to numb, right? It's actually going to be therapeutic, because again, you can take a benzodiazepine like Xanax or Klonopin or whatever those things is, and it depresses the central nervous system to the point to where you don't really care about what's making you anxious. But again, you're not addressing that. It's not therapeutic in the sense of, well, I'm not scared of that anymore. It simply makes you numb. It kind of helps you check out. It's like taking something before a flight. Some people need to do that, but again, I'm not getting over the fear of flying or whatever it might be. I kind of think of therapy, medication, all of that stuff. Like if you see a backyard with a lot of weeds in it, okay, the mower, it might be taking a drug. It might be talking in therapy a little bit about things, and you go around and you mow and it looks really, really great for a while. But until you get to the root, which might be heavy therapy, maybe trauma therapy, maybe a specific type of medication, until I get to the root of those things, the symptoms are just going to keep coming back. So I have to go to the why. Again, I mentioned earlier, why is our survival skill? It keeps me safe. It helps me to not repeat same patterns, but it helps me to find that purpose. And so I'm all for medications. I'm all for that stuff. But again, am I getting to the root while I'm either taking it, or is that being specifically therapeutic for my condition, like military members with PTSD and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's Sean Ryan, a podcast I listen to a lot. He talks about how when he went to Mexico, he went there with 15 people, and I think 13 out of the 15 came back and they were all good. Like when Sean Ryan went there, he was an alcoholic, abused drugs, all that stuff. When he came back, he was a way better father, way better husband, and he was just a better person. But he said it's not like that for everybody. Like he said, 13 out of the 15 came back and they were good. But it's just like you said, everybody, it's kind of different strokes for different folks. What's going to work for them might not work for you, or what works for you might not work for them. It's the human mind is very complex.
Absolutely. And it depends upon, so I'm big into like, some of it's psychodynamic theory, but it's okay. So how were we raised? One, and no, this is not dumping on mom and dad by any means, but it's what's the environment in which we were raised? Who was around us when we were growing up? What type of experiences did we go through? How does that shape how we develop personality, how we adapt or react to specific things? And then how can we work with those to change the direction or change things to what you want to work on. And so like the dynamic with a therapist and everything, when I came home from Rogers Memorial Hospital, I had 4 different therapists before I found my right fit. And it depends upon personality. It depends upon the modality that they use. It depends upon your comfortability with them. It depends on previous experiences with a therapist or with your family and all that stuff. So it's incredibly complicated, and you add medications on top of that. Yeah, there's no textbook, this is going to work for the 15 people or whatever it is. It's going to be individualized to every single one of them.
What's your views on alcohol? Because I'm doing dry January and we are, 10 days into it.
Okay.
I feel like a different human being.
Sure.
And I've gotten to the gym every 5 days at 5 a.m. because I have a son that I take care of during the day while Chris goes to work, and then I go to work at night for PSP and she takes care of him. So it's like, but we both agreed to do this dry January. It was nothing like I wasn't an alcoholic, but I just want to try something new.
Sure.
10 days in, I feel like a new human being.
Yeah.
And it's not like I was drinking every night. I was kind of a weekend warrior, watching a football game, have a few beers, blah, blah, blah. Next day, wake up feeling like shit. So it's been a welcome change. Now, I'm not saying I'm done drinking forever, but it's been a welcome change. But what are your views with alcohol?
So personally, I think the first party that I ever went to was senior graduation week in high school. I didn't go to anything when I was younger, didn't do any of that, nothing against it. Alcoholism runs strong on both sides of my family. So I don't have a negative view of it, but I don't partake. I maybe once a year, if that. But I'm kind of an advocate that it tends to make things worse, not only emotionally, because it's a depressant, obviously, but also the rebound effects after somebody has drank. We did something at Minot State where went to a conference and we talked about, like, for college athletes, even if you're just doing kind of the weekend warrior type thing where you go out one night and you have 6, 7, 8, whatever odd drinks it is, it sets you back 3, 4, 5 days in terms of how much progress and how much effort you put into the gym and training and things like that. So from a physical standpoint, it's not good for you, not at all. From a psychological perspective, it's more difficult to work with people who do drink when they come in, like if they're buzzed, they're drunk, anything like that. That obviously doesn't work well. But as far as emotional health, I would say, and maybe other therapists are going to disagree with me, I would say better to stay away from it than to drink. Yeah. Well, especially, I mean, if people are on medications and things, those obviously don't mix. They don't mix. But again, people are going to do what people are going to do. And again, that's not my responsibility. It's not my choice for them. But at the same time, I've seen people in therapy where it does wreak havoc on recovery, on getting better and all that stuff. But it's a personal choice.
Yeah. Coming to therapy drunk, that must be that's a wild thing.
I've had a few.
That's a wild thing to pull.
I've had a few. And they've also said, but I'm so much more open. I want to talk, and or coming from the gym and being, got all those endorphins going and you feel fantastic. So you're not going to tell me though, we're not going to be able to dive deep, or you come high. I've had that happen as well. You're numbed out whether you feel more relaxed and more open to talk to me or not. And so the brain's not going to be as cooperative throughout therapy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Troy, I could talk to you all day, man. This was so much fun for me. Thank you again for coming in. Thanks for adjusting
Thanks
the time.
for the invite. Yeah.
I had a horrible migraine when we were going to originally do this. Like, it was terrible, dude. I've never had one like that.
Yeah. Sucks.
Wake up in the morning and I'm like, there's something going on. And I'm like, it'll be okay by lunch. No, it was terrible. So thank you again for coming in on a Saturday. But like I said, Swim Lessons, a podcast about overcoming tough times. Leave us with something, Troy. It can be a story, a quote, something that got you through a dark time and brought you into the light.
Wow, that's tough. No, I mean, it may sound corny and cliche, but corny and cliche things tend to be the most truthful. I would say, through the whole process, I would never say I loved what I went through. But I would say I think my faith, because that's been something that the seed was planted probably when I was in high school, but it's grown since that time and been reinforced after I lost, a couple of loved ones here in the last few years. But I'm so thankful that I did go through what I have through, and the perspective that I have now on life, on appreciating the little things a lot more. But then also the willingness to be vulnerable. It's uncomfortable. It's not fun. It sucks at times, but there's growth on the other side of that. And so I encourage people when they're ready to just one foot in front of the other.
Beautiful. Well, where can people find you? Is there something like you'd like to plug, or a website or anything?
I'm the worst person at, I used to have a website, don't anymore. But
read the book, Unbroken.
Read the book, Unbroken.
Yeah.
Reach out to me on social media. I'm an open book. So
awesome, Troy. Well, hey, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you for the invite.
Well, maybe we should do this again sometime.
Yeah. I'd be open.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Troy. That's a wrap, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.